This is the procrastination video you've been procrastinating about. I'm kidding, all jokes aside. People think that procrastinators are lazy, right? That they're just not doing anything. But that's actually wrong because procrastination comes in all different forms and types. And in this video, I'm going to identify for you some of these types. So hopefully you can, by analyzing it and by judging yourself, you can find what type of procrastinator you are so that you can tackle it and eliminate procrastination from your life. But before going to this, welcome to another video from the Master of Time channel. I'm Rod Esteves. Thank you so much for being with me. And if you want to grow, if you value the content in this channel, just click here on subscribe. It won't cost you anything, and the platform will actually deliver this content to more people that need help to grow, help to overcome procrastination, and help with time management and productivity and all the amazing things I talk about on this channel. So I appreciate you. Go ahead, click subscribe, and let's go to the video. Like I said, there's many different types and forms of procrastination, but in this video, I'm going to identify 6 of them. And hopefully you're gonna fall within these categories, and this is gonna help you overcome procrastination in your life. The first one is the perfectionist procrastinator. So this person avoids completing tasks because the result of these tasks are never to the standards that they think it needs to be. In other words, they might have ultra high standards just as an excuse not to actually complete tasks. These people often struggle with self-doubt, with they are too worried about what people were thinking, that people are going to judge them. Perfectionism is such a trap that people will actually create reasons to procrastinate, and perfectionism is one of those reasons, just to avoid performing such tasks. And it's actually going to sound like legitimate reasons. So the person is actually convincing themselves to procrastinate, which is insane, but it actually happens. If you are struggling with this, you should focus on progress versus perfection. You know, like that saying, the imperfect done, it's better than the perfect never done. This is the mentality that you need to have. So I want you to right now get a piece of paper and start making a list of the things that you are procrastinating for this exact reason, because you think it's not perfect, not good enough. Start analyzing them, okay? Don't be too critical. Just analyze them from an outside perspective. Is this good? Is this good for you to do it, for you to publish? Remember that most things, they can be adjusted along the way. You are able actually to course correct on most actions. So this is what usually stops a perfectionist procrastinator, because they think that this is one and done. Well, most things are not. Most things you actually have the chance and the time to course correct along the way. So if you actually ask yourself this question, am I able to course correct along the way? If the answer is yes, and most likely it's going to be, what are you waiting for? Just do it. Okay, the next one is the dreamer procrastinator. Well, but first I want to tell you a quick story about the Great Wall of China. Although this monument is actually considered one of the 7 wonders of the world, it wasn't actually envisioned in totality by just one person. It was actually unified and put together by the very first Chinese emperor. So his name is Qin Shi Huang, and even though he didn't have the idea and the totality of the wall, he did have the idea of unifying it and continue to build. And this process took over 2,000 years to complete. We're talking about over 13,000 miles of walls. But if he didn't have the idea of starting that unification, brick by brick, and he was just having that idea on his head, oh, this is going to be massive and I don't know how to get started. Well, it all started with laying that very first brick, right? So, dreamer procrastinators are optimistic. They're always thinking about the big vision, but they struggle in the execution part. So, in essence, they get lost in their big ideas and they fail to create the map, the steps necessary to actually get started. Let me tell you something, this is very common. And if you are a big dreamer, I applaud you because I'm a big dreamer as well, but you need to recognize that every single big dream they started with small execution. So you have to avoid not falling into the trap of being overwhelmed by the amount of tasks that this big dream will have. What's the solution, Rod? You might be asking, right? So you have to start with something that I call SET. It's an acronym actually that says smallest executionable task. Start small. That big idea you have, start breaking it down to the very, very tiny particle of a task because that is progress. Okay, so you are removing that big idea from your dream world and you're actually starting to execute very, very small because this is going to create the least path of resistance. Okay, let's talk about the next one, which is the crisis maker procrastinator. Well, let me tell you something about these individuals. They actually thrive under pressure and they purposely wait until the last minute to complete tasks. That's why it's called the crisis maker procrastinator. They truly believe that they work best under pressure and under a very tight deadline. But there's a big issue with that. It is proven that it often leads to less quality work. And when you have such a tight deadline and you cannot control all the variables, it's impossible for us to control all the variables. If one of them fails, then your entire project can actually crumble. So you cannot depend on very tight deadline expecting to produce your best work. That's not a great tactic. And then if you don't have enough time to adjust the necessary pieces, you're just going to produce subpar results. That's what's going to happen. So what's the solution for this one? Well, you actually have to practice time management. You have to practice early project time blocking. And at the end of the day, you have to challenge the belief that by having a tighter or being under pressure, it's going to produce a better work. It won't. You just have to break that belief. And then we have the dopamine seeker procrastinator. Well, it's very simple. These people, they prioritize short-term pleasure over long-term goals. Well, I believe this is ringing some bells, right? Because I think that we all have a little bit of this, but there are people that are chronic procrastinators that they depend on dopamine. They simply rather do something enjoyable now than tackling a challenging task. And let me tell you something, most people that suffer from ADHD, they tend to have this type of, or suffer from this type of procrastination because of two main factors. ADHD, one of the side effects is it produces less dopamine, so there's an issue in the production of dopamine, and there's also an issue in the receptors of dopamine, okay? So they don't have the willpower, dopamine, it helps us produce tasks, to do tasks. So they have this system that is faulty. So you have to create a solution for that if you have ADHD. And the solution, or the possible solution for this, is rewards, because rewards, it helps the brain to release dopamine. So use a simple reward system to help you accomplish tasks. I'll give you an example. Allow yourself, let's say, 15 minutes of social media or any pleasurable activity that is obviously not detrimental to you or to your health. So block that 15 minutes after you accomplish a certain portion of a task. So that's the reward. So your brain is going to be expecting that reward, and actually in this expectation, your brain already starts releasing that dopamine necessary to do that action. So work on a reward system for yourself instead of being a victim of instant pleasure that you actually need that release of dopamine right away. Work on your longer term goals, knowing that you do have a reward after completing a task. All right, let's talk about another type of procrastinator, which is the decisional procrastinator. Well, this type of procrastinator simply delays performing tasks because they fear making the wrong choice. These people often overanalyze things and they suffer with indecision. Have you seen that type of person that spends weeks analyzing different laptops or even smartphone options just to never buy one because they're overanalyzing all the options? They got stuck and they ended up not buying anything. Yeah, so that's a decisional procrastination. And to avoid that, I have a few solutions for you. Well, the first one is that you have to set a deadline for decisions. I've talked about this in my channel here and also in my Instagram, but the Parkinson's law states that a certain activity will expand, or the time of this activity will expand according to the time that you give to that particular activity. In other words, if you don't set a timeline for an activity, that time can be infinite because it's expanding, okay? So the very first thing that you need to do is set a deadline. Okay, set a time frame for that particular activity so it won't expand indefinitely. And the second is set a plan B path. Just by having the fact that you are making a decision, which is you're breaking that decisional procrastinator habit, you're making a decision, set a plan B path. If that decision, is not a good one, it doesn't work, create a different path for it. Okay, so don't be afraid of making a decision because you think that decision is going to be forever, it's going to be definite. Most of the times, it's not. Most of the times, you actually have the chance to course correct. So create a plan B in case that decision that you made won't work for you on the very first try. And the last one that I want to talk to you about is a very popular one, the busy procrastinator. These individuals, they basically fill their schedule with low priority tasks just to avoid the high priority or more important tasks. Does that ring a bell? And it's funny because these people actually, they look productive, they seem to be productive, but no, because they are performing low activities or low result activities that will never get to their goals, but they're busy, they keep busy. That busyness doesn't translate to being productive. And some examples are, that project manager who ends up organizing their work environment for an additional 30 minutes and instead of working on that critical project. Or sometimes you that you were watching me, you give yourself that excuse that you don't have time to read because you are giving yourself that additional 30 minutes, 45 minutes of responding to messages, by the way, unimportant messages, okay? Checking on social media. So you're like prolonging that, and then your excuse is going to be like, well, apparently I didn't have enough time to read, which is okay because I was busy doing this, and that. Not important. Well, can you propose a solution, Rod? Yeah, I can propose a solution. There are many solutions, by the way, but one that I like is the Eisenhower matrix, which is divides your tasks into the level of importancy or the level of urgency, right? So urgent versus important. And you can actually create a matrix and start tagging those tasks and separating them in the level of importance. The level of importance that I really like for my projects is impact. How much of an impact this task is going to create in my goals, right? So I have my list of goals and my list of objectives. This task, how high of an impact will create in my biggest goals? That's how I usually like to prioritize. Okay, now that we covered 6 types of procrastinators, I want to propose a challenge to you. I actually created a quiz, and the quiz is going to be available either in the comments section on this video, or I'm gonna put right here for you, yep, in the screen, so you can, there's gonna be a QR code so you can take this quiz, and I'm going to actually analyze the answers, and I will send you what type of procrastinator you are, and I can help you with techniques to overcome that procrastination. But I hope that this video already gave you a lot of ideas on how to overcome procrastination. Again, don't assume any identity of a procrastinator. You're not a procrastinator, you're procrastinating on certain activities. So you have the ability to stop that, and I trust you can. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'll see you on our next video. God bless you, and I'll see you soon.